that you would like to clear. And as I always mention that no question is a stupid question, and I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to questions. If you were stuck at a point in the whatever we did in the last class, we can discuss it right now, and we can have our foundations stronger for understanding um, source linguistics and the concepts therein. Any questions? Okay, all right. So I guess there are no questions, and I was so good in the last class that you were like completely clear about whatever we did. So I think we started with an introduction to Saussure and structuralism, and we were talking about the sign and the signifier, and signified, signifier, and the sign. And today we will proceed with the concepts. Today we will proceed with whatever concepts were propounded by Saussure in his book, Course in General Linguistics. So let's go to the PDF that I took out from Norton Critical Anthology, and I hope all of you have the text. Let me know if you do not. I will try to share my screen, and I will try to show you the area where we are doing. So if somebody does not have the text, that person can let me know, can send a quick message in the chat box. So I will share or I will not share. And today I will not turn on my video because last class we had a lot of issues related to the network. There were frequent disconnections, and I hope it doesn't get repeated today and we can have a smooth class. Okay, so let us go further into Saussure and his linguistics and his ideas about linguistics. Okay, so meanwhile, I hope that you have read at least the introduction to Saussure, and there are a number of books that are mentioned in the bibliography section of the excerpt that I provided to you. And if you want to go further into structuralism, and if you want to go further into structural linguistics of Saussure, you can read these books, or you can at least read the introductions to these books, where which book is talking about which aspect of Saussurean linguistics will be clear, and then you can go into the book. So also I think we talked about the concept of binary opposites, right? Can somebody tell me if we really talked about binary opposites as well? Yes, no? But I think I remember I was talking about binary opposites. Okay, so as I said that I will be taking names, and I will be choosing volunteers to talk about whatever questions they have, whatever questions I have for them. So I said I would do this from this class onwards, and if you do not like it, you can be very candid, you can be very frank, and you can when I take your name, you can just stay mute, or you can send me a message and tell me I'm not interested in answering your question. No, not like that, but you can say that no, I don't want to answer. That's okay, that's absolutely okay. Okay, so Purushottam Mukherjee, do you think you can tell me something about binary opposites, which we discussed in the last class, if you were there in it? Yeah, okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah. So in the last class, I think you talked about what the binary opposites of the colors are white and black,
Mm-hmm.
and how they sort of portray the in the linguistics how we think about colors, and
Mm-hmm.
you were talking about how like the region outside the binary and within the binary formula in our head,
Mm-hmm.
and like the Saussurian theories about how we can sort of determine what this pattern is essentially.
Okay. All right. So yeah, go ahead.
And because Saussure, like, he laid the foundations for like linguistics and
Mm-hmm.
semantics in the 20th century. So he talked about binaries in many different terms.
Mm-hmm.
And one way you were talking about how I think space-time was one of the topics that was sort of brought up in discussion, and
Mm-hmm.
how binaries sort of relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's all I can remember right now.
Well, you
But
remember a lot. I mean, that's fantastic that you could remember so much. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the binary opposites. Like Saussure pointed out that among the many things that he pointed out, and we also talked about the fact that Saussure was saying that language is arbitrary. Like all signs are arbitrary, and within that paradigm, within that idea of arbitrariness, Saussure also pointed out that all the words or all the words that are there in any language are in opposition to each other, are functioning as binary opposites. He was not saying that this is a good thing or a bad thing, or this is what should happen, or this is what can happen, but he was trying to point out what is going on in any language whatsoever. He was trying to bring out the fact that it is through opposition that meaning is often established. However, as pointed out by this gentleman whom I do not see today, I, I I can't remember his name. He was Debo, Deborgo or something like that. I can't remember his name. He brought this idea up, um, and he was saying that what is the binary opposite of space or time or space time itself, and as Saussure accepted that binary opposites are in no way going to explain everything, every term, every terminology, every idea, every concept in any language whatsoever, and binary opposites are just one way of understanding, or are one way of um, uh, creating a perceptible, creating a comprehensible topic, creating a comprehensible idea of anything. And unfortunately, in English language, like in many other Indian languages as well, much of the ideas exist in, or used to exist at least in, the relationships of binary opposites. For example, if you want if you want to say man, then uh, you have to put woman in the relationship of binary opposite to man. If you want to talk about solid, you have to put the word liquid in binary opposite to solid. However, we have also two other forms of matter, which is gaseous and plasma. But we do not usually put gas as opposed to um, liquid, or opposed to solid, but which we should, or which we can. So binary opposites is actually a limiting factor as far as linguistic comprehension or linguistic knowledge or linguistic constructions are concerned. It is not something which is necessary, but it is something that is there, and Saussure was trying to explain the concepts of binary opposites in the language. However, the applied part of structural linguistics or applied part of structuralism itself will be in the in feminism and in post-colonialism. And I think you have both these theoretical concepts to talk about or to discuss in your syllabus. So, in feminism, say, what feminism is trying to establish, or had been trying to establish, and now it's like firmly established, that man is not in opposition, or man is in no way a binary opposite to a woman, or a man is or or if we are talking about post-colonial concepts, then black is not the binary opposite of white, but it's just another shade. White is another shade of a color, and black is also another shade of color, and in certain cases there is no distinction between white and black. However, when Saussure was writing this, we have to remember that he was operating in the late 19th century and early 20th century, and way back then, binary opposites were something that were very firmly established. And if you ask, like, what is space-time, what is the binary opposite of space-time, they would have, like, people who were sticklers for these oppositions might have had said something which is not acceptable anymore. But let's move on to, but is this concept, is this idea clear with you guys? That we discussed basically two ideas, that one, sign is arbitrary, language is thus arbitrary, and the sign, according to Saussure, comprises of the signifier, that is the image, the sound image or the visual image of the signified meaning the object, the real object, or an idea of the object in our mind. Are these two things clear with every one of you, or do you want me to, like, or if anybody has any doubts, I would love to go back to the concept and start over, because though we do not have much time, but I need you to have a very solid understanding of whatever you can understand of Saussure or of structural linguistics. No questions? Okay, so I assume that you do not have any doubts from these two concepts, and we will proceed with Saussure's concepts, Saussure's ideas, and so on and so forth. So the next concept or the next idea that I want to talk about is from this excerpt of Norton Critical Anthology, and it's just beneath the bibliography. It's on page 960, and it starts like this: Chapter 3, the object of linguistics, place of language in the facts of speech. Did you guys get it, or are we not on the same page? If I am not on the same page, if you are groping somewhere else, we can try to come to this location and then go ahead. Is it okay? We are clear on the page that we are supposed to be?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So it says, to summarize, these are the characteristics of language, and you can have a very flat question from here, like exam wise, like what are the characteristics of language according to Saussure? Very flat question. 10 marks, 20 marks question can be attempted, can be asked from this particular area, and hence it has some importance. So language is a well-defined object in the heterogeneous mass of speech facts. What is this? Language is a well-defined object. So according to Saussure, or what Saussure found out in his discussions or in his research, is that language is considered to be an object. We usually do not consider language to be an object, right? But according to this definition, language is a well defined object in the heterogeneous. Can somebody tell me what is the meaning of heterogeneous?
Diverse.
Diverse. Very good. And now you see, this is a very good example of binary opposites. What is the opposite of heterogeneous, Anirban?
Homogeneous, sir.
Homogeneous, right? So homogeneous, yes, homogeneous and heterogeneous are supposed to be in a kind of a binary opposite relationship, which actually it is not the fact. But anyway, I just wanted to point out, I want to apply structural linguistics on whatever we are doing right now. Okay, so heterogeneous means diverse mass of speech facts. Speech facts. What could be the meaning of this? Speech facts. We know what is the meaning of speech, but what is the meaning of this phrase? Speech facts. Can somebody help me? Can somebody tell me what they think is speech facts? Speech is speech, but what are facts? Speech facts. Okay, let us move a little bit ahead with the definition and try to see if Sasur is giving some information about it, and then we can come back and I'll try to explain what facts could be. It can be localized in the limited segment of speaking circuit where an auditory image becomes associated with the concept. So I think Sasur does give the meaning of speech facts. By speech facts, he seems to be saying that it can be localized in a limited segment of speaking circuit. Circuit is usually roundish, so he's talking about a bunch of people, a community, a group of people, a linguistic community, where an auditory image becomes associated with a concept. So what happens is, it's not a fact that something is named something or something has to be called something. It is a matter of habit. It is a matter of association. It is a matter of hereditary knowledge. It's a matter of traditionally knowing that this thing is this thing. And it becomes a fact. Not truth, but fact. That, say, pen in English is column in Bangla, or column in Bangla is pen in English. It might be something very different in some other languages, right? So the speech facts are facts which are there in front of you right now. Say for example, and this is just to have a little fun in this boring lecture, that could somebody tell me about the English of the Bengali or Hindi of mobile phone, like mobile phone, mobile. And it's funny, like it's fun to like have this exercise. Have you ever thought what could be the Bengali of mobile phone? And there is a Bengali of
Mutophone.
huh?
Mutophone.
Motophone.
Mutophone. Bangladeshi
Mutophone. Yes, very good. Mutophone. That means something that can be inside your which could be grabbed by your palms. Muto. Something more formal, something more funnier than muto phone. Cholo bhash. Okay, so you came up with that, or you read it somewhere?
না না, দূরভাষ থেকে আমি বিপরীত শব্দ চলভাষ বার করলাম।
Okay, that's great. You see, this is how language is actually created. Now, all of you know, thanks to Onkon, that you can call a mobile phone, either a mutophone or you can call it a cholobhash. There is another word and more formal word for this mobile, and that is usually, I mean, I read it somewhere or somebody told it to me, that it's a Grammoman Durbhash Jontro. Grammoman means something that can be taken anywhere. Like it's the word Grammoman equates to mobile, and so the Grammoman Durobhash, which you Onkon pointed out, Durobhash Jontro. But isn't it very like cumbersome? It's very awkward to say Grammoman Durobhash Jontro instead of mobile. So mobile phone is something that has come to be associated with a particular image, and it has stayed, like, and that is how this language is actually created, and that is how we have facts. So the first definition of language is a well defined object in the heterogeneous mass of speech facts. Okay, and it can be localized in the limited segment of the speaking circuit where an auditory image becomes associated with a concept. Now here, or from here, actually Saussure had brought out the concept of synchrony and diachrony. Does somebody already somebody has already read about this synchrony and diachrony? Or does somebody know about this idea of synchrony and diachrony? And is it okay for me to, like, oh yeah, I already discussed. Let me see who else who doesn't ever talk to me. Shostika Chatterjee, can you unmute and speak to me? I mean, you're absolutely free not to. There's no pressure. Shostika Chatterjee?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, did you? There's a lot of background noise. I know why you have kept yourself mute. But since we are speaking, have you heard of this term, synchrony and diachrony, or synchronic and diachronic?
No, sir.
Okay. Who has heard? Is anybody there who has heard about this? Oh, okay. Thank you, Rustika.
बैटरी का तो मोटर का दाम कितना है?
This is funny, isn't it? Like, since it's an online class, people could be found at really very funny places. Sorry, Shostika. I mean, sorry to everyone. I don't mean to like embarrass you, but I just want to make it more participatory and more interactive. And it's okay. Like, if there's background noise, you can't help it. Anyone else would like to hazard a guess what synchrony and diachrony could be? Because the idea of synchrony and diachrony, which I will discuss in detail later, comes out from this idea or from this definition of language, that as Saussure says here, that it can be localized in a limited segment of a speaking circuit. Well, you see, synchronic linguistics and diachronic linguistics were two concepts that Saussure was speaking about, and synchrony is something that Saussure means to say that the study of language at a given point in time across all the communities where that language is spoken. So synchrony is something that is associated with geography and the present time, and the geography in abstract terms. Say, for example, if you study English as it is spoken in 2021, then you have to study English as it is spoken in India, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Myanmar, in America, in UK, in Australia, and so on and so forth. Wherever English is spoken, you have to study all the places all at the same time. And diachrony is something where you study the development of a language in a particular region over a period of time. So an example of diachrony is the study of English language as it evolved from Old English to Middle English and then to Modern English. Okay, but we will talk about this in detail when we will be clearing the concepts. But I just tried to tell you that it is from this definition of language that these concepts of synchrony and diachrony later came up. Okay, let's move to the next point, which says that language, unlike speaking, is something that we can study separately. So language, unlike speaking, can be studied separately. Speaking cannot be studied separately because language can be of many types, and the language can be written, the language can be, as I pointed out, gestural, but speaking is something that is done at this instant. And back then the recording devices weren't really so advanced. So I think that is why Sasur is saying that language, unlike speaking, is something that we can study separately. To what? Separately to speech itself, because here again we could encounter another concept that came out of structural linguistics. Can somebody guess which two concepts would come out from this definition or from this point that language, unlike speaking, can be studied separately? Just a guess, just like make a wild guess. Onkon, would you try?
Sir, can you please repeat the question?
You see, there is this sentence that is the second definition of language, and he says that language, unlike speaking, can be studied separately. So there are two concepts that comes out from this particular feature of language that Sasur thinks are the concepts of language. Well, yeah, Onkon.
Is it post-structuralism?
Post-structuralism came like post the structuralism. So no, I was talking about Lang and Parole, two very important concepts, and I am
I was not aware
typing.
of that, sir.
You were not aware of that?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, no problem. Okay, so Lang and Parole. Now again, I will be talking about these two concepts separately, but when we are reading a excerpt from course in general linguistics, these concepts will not be written like a dictionary, and we have to tease out the subsequent theories or subsequent concepts that came out from whatever is written in the text. So what is Lang and Parole? Just like giving you a trailer of the meaning. Lang is the entire language. Lang is the entire language. Like if you're talking about English language, then Lang is the entire language. Okay, Lang is the entire language. And Parole is the individual speech or individual sentence or individual word or individual paragraph that we use from the resources of the language. Now, what does it mean? Who of you are watching like Hawkeye? Like, is anybody watching Hawkeye of Marvel? No. Okay. Um, okay. So, how many of you guys have watched or read Mahabharat or like seen the B.R. Chopra Mahabharat and the other Mahabharat? Anybody who has like seen Mahabharat? I want you to tell me if you know about who Arjun is and what Arjun does. Pratyasha Roy, do you wish to speak? Do you wish to interact? Okay, yeah. Pratyasha, can you could you speak to us? I guess no. Okay, no problem. Debolina, do you want to speak? No. I mean, as I said, it's absolutely okay if you do not. You see, Arjun was an archer, as you all know, Tir Chalato. And in Mahabharat, he had like huge number of arrows in his what's that called? যেখানে তীর থাকে সেটাকে ইংরেজিতে কি বলে? Quiver. Yes, I think that's the word. Correct me if I'm wrong. Quiver. In his quiver, he had a number of arrows, right? And he used to pick one arrow up to like hit someone or do some damage or some kind of damage. And there were like separate arrows for separate things, right? And imagine that the quiver of Arjun is the language. He has a number of choices of sentences, of words, of paragraphs to be chosen from that quiver, and we also do the same. We are all, say, Arjuns, because I'm using this imagery, I'm using this metaphor because we often say that language is like an arrow. Once it is shot from your mouth, it's not going to come back. So, in that paradigm, I am talking about language being a quiver. So we choose at least one word, one sentence, or one particle from our language and use it in our speech, right? That language that is out there, that is in an abstract form, that is huge, is the lung. And the individual arrow that we choose to use in a particular situation for a particular purpose can be understood to be as the parole. Okay, is this thing clear with you guys, or do you want me to repeat it, use some other examples, use some other metaphor and try to explain it to you? Anybody who did not get it? Yes. Or Orunabo?
Yes, sir. Repeat it.
Okay. So Orunabo, I'm going to ask you a very stupid question. Why are you named Orunabo?
That I don't know. My parents are aware of it. That I don't know.
Okay, so your parents named you Orunabo, which has a meaning, of course. Orun means sun, and the Abha means like yes.
Like grace.
the rays of the sun, the heat of the sun, or the rays of the sun, the beauty of the sun, the light of the sun, abha, urunabo. So your parents named you urunabo, but they had a lot of options of names, right?
Yes, sir.
But they chose this compound word orunabho, orun plus abha, orunabha, orunabho, and they used it for you, right? So some, like, my name is Pritesh, and my parents, among many names, chose Pritesh. They could have had chosen like Kalik Prasad, or they could have had chosen like mm, uh, you know Bhoirav, or not making a pun on your college's name, or Surjokanto, whatever. Like, they could have had chosen anything, but thank God they chose this name, and which is like less used name. But this name is like a little longer, but that's okay. But they had a number of choices, right? Like, your parents and my parents had a number of choices, but they chose this word. In your case, they chose a word. In my case, they chose a word, right? So all the choices that they had was lang, but the actual word that they used for us in our birth certificates is the name that we are stuck with. So all the choices that they had is lang, and the name that we use is parole. Did you get it this time, Orunabu?
Yes, sir. I'm getting.
Okay. So do you still have any doubts about this?
No, sir, I don't have.
Okay, great. So whenever you face any trouble, because these things have to be conceptually very clear. If your concept is not clear, then no matter how much you mug up your answers, things will not be very healthy when you go to, say, for higher studies, when you go for your MPhil or when you go for your PhD. These things, if they are clear from your master's time, they will help you understand them better or apply them better in your PhD and stuff like that. So sometimes we say that, oh, I chose the wrong words and I'm sorry. Like, say, this could happen with parents, or this could happen with friends, or this could happen with anybody, that you did not want to use a word, but then uh, you could not find any other appropriate word to be used, and you used a word which was not appropriate to that particular situation. Okay. And then that we had a number of choices of words, of sentences, phrases, but we chose the wrong word or sentence for that particular purpose. And that is the difference between lang and parole, which again Saussure points out, and later structuralists and many other people, including Noam Chomsky, talked about, and that is actually the competence and performance. So lang and parole can also be understood to be as competence and performance, which is an often repeated term in structural linguistics. You can write it down, competence and performance. So competence is what? So say, for example, can we run like we can all run very fast. I mean, I can't because I'm fat, but you guys can run really very fast. But can you run fast in all situations? Can you run fast in equally fast on a flat surface, or on a hill, or on ice, or on snow, or on desert, or in the water? So we have a competence which is abstract, which we do not know what our competence is actually. But we perform at a particular point in time in a particular way. For example, all of you guys are very intelligent, and all of you can get like uh, uh, full marks or many like great marks in your exam. But all of our exams are not so good. Sometimes we score less, sometimes we score more. So if we can score more, we can imagine that our competence is there to score more. But when we score less, we think that okay, we had the competence, but there were some issues that led us to score less. So lang parole can be converted, can be understood in the terms of competence and performance as well. Okay, and all of this situates, all of this initiates from this particular statement that we can study them separately. Okay, let's come to the third point now. Whereas speech is heterogeneous, language as defined is homogeneous. It is a system of signs in which the only essential thing is the union of meanings and sound images, and in which both parts of the sign are psychological. Now, this is interesting. So, speech is heterogeneous, language as defined is homogeneous. But earlier we understood that language is a well defined object in a heterogeneous mass of speech facts. So he has already established that speech is heterogeneous, language is homogeneous. He's indulging in binary opposites again. So why is speech heterogeneous? What is the meaning of this line? Speech is heterogeneous, whereas language is
like the
homogeneous.
language,
Ankon, your voice broke up. Could you come again? Ankon, your voice is still not clear. Do you mind like rejoining so that there might be a like, yeah. So it usually happens that if you rejoin, your connection gets better. I don't know why that happens, but it happens. Yes, Ankon, you are saying.
স্যার শুনতে পাচ্ছি?
হ্যাঁ শুনতে পাচ্ছি, বলো।
মানে ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের ভ্যারিয়েশনটা ডায়ালেক্টে হয় আর কি, ওটাই হেটারোজেনিটির কথা বলছি। মানে একটা পার্টিকুলার ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, বাংলার যেমন রাঢ়ী বঙ্গালী,
হুম
তারপর আমরা মেনলি রাঢ়ীতে কথা বলি,
হুম
তারপর বারেন্দ্রী, এই সমস্ত ভ্যারিয়েশন আছে। তো
হুম হুম।
এটাই হেটারোজেনিটি। The heterogeneity lies in the variation in case of dialects.
So you mean to say that speech is heterogeneous because when we speak, we speak in a particular dialect. We do
হ্যাঁ
not
স্যার।
use. Yeah, okay, very good. Ankon says that whenever we speak, especially whenever we speak, we use one dialect or another. We can never use the language, because language is abstract. There is nothing called a language. There are dialects of language that exist. I think in your PG1, I think I was talking about this earlier as well. In your PG1, did you learn about allophones of phonemes or allomorphs of morphemes?
হ্যাঁ স্যার।
Okay, so this will be easier for you to understand now. So আমরা ভগবানকে কোনোদিনও দেখিনি আর দেখবও না, মানে আমার তো প্রশ্নই ছেড়ে দাও, আমাকে ডাইরেক্ট নরকেই পাঠানো হবে। But you still have like a lot of life left to do good deeds and go to heaven. Just jokes apart, there's a concept of God, and we have not seen God, but there is Allah, and there is Jesus, and there is their God, and there is Uh, just a minute. There's a call coming and I need to pick it up. Just give me 1 minute. हाँ बोलो, क्लास में हूँ. कोई अर्जेंट है? ओके ओके. Okay, sorry for that interruption. Okay, so as I was saying that, yes, Onkon, anything?
Sorry, sir, I accidentally unmuted myself.
Okay, okay. So we have not seen God, but we have seen forms of God. Like Muslims have one form of God whom they worship. Christians have, Sikhs have, we have, Hindus have. And then among Hindus, it's very confusing, like, which God is like actually there. So the thing is, there are various forms of the same God that we look. And all religions say the same thing, that there is only one God, and we worship different forms of God. We take various names of God, but the God is one. So every God is actually singular. Similarly with language, there is no one language. There is no language itself, but there are forms of language. As Ankon pointed out, that we might speak in standard Bangla, we can speak in Rajbongshi dialect, we can speak in Chadgai dialect, we can speak in Bangal Bhasha, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, speech will always be heterogeneous. বিভিন্ন ধরনের হবে, মানে এই মুহূর্তেও আমাদের মধ্যে আমরা মাত্র 11 জন আছি. এই 11 জনের মধ্যেও কিন্তু আমাদের স্পিচের মধ্যে অনেক রকমের ভ্যারিয়েশনস হয়ে যাবে. যদিও আমরা সবাই মোটামুটি হয়তো স্ট্যান্ডার্ড বাংলাই বলি, যেটাকে সো কল্ড স্ট্যান্ডার্ড বাংলা বলে, যেটা একটা ডায়ালেক্ট বাংলার, মোর পাওয়ারফুল ডায়ালেক্ট অ্যাকচুয়ালি, বাট তাও ভ্যারিয়েশনস হয়ে যাবে, ঠিক আছে. আর অঙ্কন তো একটা ভ্যারিয়েশনের কথা বললো, অনেকগুলো ভ্যারিয়েশন হয়ে যেতে পারে. টোন আলাদা, পিচ আলাদা, জেন্ডার আলাদা, ইডিওলেক্ট বলে একটা কথা হয় সেটা আলাদা, যেটা তোমরা সোশিও লিঙ্গুইস্টিক্সে পড়বে, সেটা আলাদা. তো ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ মানে এই ক্ষেত্রে দেখতে গেলে স্পিচটা will be very diverse, will be very different from each other. But the idea of language is homogeneous. That is, when we start writing, it is usually not very easy to understand to which dialect we belong to, because we will be writing English, we will be writing Bangla, and we will be using the rules that exist in Bangla or Hindi or whatever language we are using. In that sense, language, the idea of language will become homogeneous, whereas the speech, its actual form, will become heterogeneous. মানে ভগবান একটাই, তো ওনার কোনো নির্বিকার নিরাকার, সব ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে, সব ধর্মেই একই কথা বলা হয় যে উনি নির্বিকার নিরাকার অ্যান্ড সর্বব্যাপী and all that. So in that sense, God is homogeneous. But আমরা কোনো সময় দুর্গা পুজো করলাম, আমরা কোনো সময় মসজিদে গিয়ে আমরা ভগবানকে ডাকলাম, আল্লাহকে ডাকলাম, আমরা কোনো সময় চার্চে গিয়ে জিসাসের সামনে মাথা নত করলাম. সো ইটস লাইক ফর্মস অফ দ্য ওয়ার্শিপ. ওকে, so language is a system of signs in which the only essential thing is the union of meaning and sound images, and both parts of sign are psychological. By saying this, Saussure is trying to point out that it is all in our head. Nothing is really out there. Both parts of the sign, we had learned earlier that there are two parts of sign, and one is signifier and the other is signified, right? And these two parts of sign, signifier is the sound image or the visual image, and the object itself is psychological. Do you agree? Or do you think, how can an object be psychological? I mean, it's not like, say suppose you are looking at your phone, right? You're looking at your mobile phone, you're looking at your screen. How is that psychological? You're holding it, it's real, it's there, it's not in our mind, but it's there. What did Sasur want to say? Well, it is not possible for us to have all the objects that we know, right? You are sitting maybe somewhere, or maybe you're lying down, maybe you're having your lunch, maybe you're doing whatever, and you're holding the phone, or you can see the phone. And at this point in time, you might also be thinking about, say, the Himalayas, or it's so cold that you feel like you're in the Himalayas. But Himalaya is not in front of you if you're not sitting like in Hotel Kanchenjunga or wherever, where you can see the Himalayas. I don't know if somebody is that lucky right now. And it will be a sacrilege indeed to listen to me and look at the Himalayas. If you are really looking at the Himalayas, just leave the meeting and look at the mountains. So something that you know is a real object is not always there in front of you, but it is there in your mind, and you have a clear definition, you have a clear image of what that thing is, and in that sense it becomes psychological. We will have our phones all the time with us, like 20 hours a day maybe. We keep our phones as if it's our oxygen. But sometimes maybe when you do not have your phone, and you have you're doing something which does not involve the phone. I cannot think of anything which does not involve the phone anymore. But your phone is not in front of you right now, and you're thinking about the phone, or you're talking about the phone. Say for example, my phone is not right here with me. I am talking from a computer, but I know my phone, and I have a clear idea of my phone, and hence that idea is psychological. Did you get this point? Honestly, if anyone didn't, do tell me, and I will try to explain it further, that how can signified be psychological.
Sir, is this related to iconicity?
Iconicity, and by iconicity you mean to say that different cultures perceive different objects differently, and hence it is psychological. I mean, I'm putting my words on your mouth, but
Might be because of the first perception they might have.
Mhm.
If something is different that doesn't matches.
So yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, say suppose we in Kolkata. I mean, I don't know where from you guys come. I did not have the fortune to talk to you on a individual basis and know where most of you are from. But I have been living in tropic for all my life, and when we say ice, when we say snow, when we say flurries, when we say hail, sleet, do they really ring different bells in your minds? Or, Anirban, you can tell me this. When I say ice, snow, borof, hail, sleet, blizzard, avalanche, flurries, they don't really ring too many bells in your mind. Be very honest about it.
Yeah, it's very limited.
In a very limited sense, because we are not used to seeing these things. Flurries ki jinish খায় না মাথায় দেয়, sleetটা কি, hailটা কি, blizzard কি, we don't need to know these things because we do not encounter these things on a daily basis. But mention blizzard to a person who is living in Canada, and he will shudder with fear, because they can kill people. We love snow. I mean, people in Kolkata would go to Darjeeling and somewhere, and they would play in the snow. Snow is so beautiful for us. But the same snow is not very welcome to the people who are living in the colder regions of the earth. So what Anirban was saying is very true, that the icon of an object is not really an object, but it's an icon. The same object does not mean the same thing for different cultures, right? And to understand and appreciate this difference is something that theory teaches us. And why are we studying this thing? Because now we know that say you have a friend in USA, and it's the time of the year when they are having a hard time, and they send you a picture of snow, and you say, wow, it's snowing, and they would be annoyed and they would say, it's not funny, man, we don't enjoy snow, because it's something that is as problematic as waterlogging in Kolkata is. What if, imagine, somebody would post a picture of waterlogged streets in, say, Behala, and Agolpara is also underwater for the most of the time. And somebody from a better part of the world says, wow, you have like water in your house, and there are fishes swimming in your house. Wow, that's a great sight. How would you react to that? So this is what is this is what language is, and this is how language behaves. Everything becomes actually an idea in the mind, and hence it is psychological. Okay, if anybody has any questions from these three things that we learned today, you can ask me, or we can go into our GEC. And I think most of you are in GEC, or all of you are in GEC, right? Because I thought that's what happened last class. Sorry. So while going to GEC, let me pull up the poem that we were doing. Emily Dickinson. Okay. I think we were going chronologically, and we were doing the soul selects her own society. That was 303, and I think we had done just the first stanza, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. And also tell me if you think after having this 1 hour conversation you're clogged and your brains are jammed and you cannot appreciate poetry. I could give you like a quick break, or we can continue. Silence is golden, but in this case I think we can continue, or if somebody has any objections to that, you can like send a quick message in the chat box. I want to continue, but if you do not want to continue, and if you want a break, then you can like send a message. If I do not find any messages, that means we can continue. Okay, so let's go forward. And guys, you have your poems with you, the text of the poem. Is there anybody who does not have the poem right now? I shared the poem in the chat box. I could do that same. Okay, so that I think all of you have your poems with yourselves, and we can plunge into the text. Okay, so the soul selects her own society. It's 303, and we are going to do the second stanza. Unmoved, she notes the chariots pausing at her low gate. Unmoved, an emperor be kneeling upon her mat. So she is unmoved. The person who has selected her own society, the soul, is unmoved. But she notes, she sees that chariots and chariot, the word chariot signifies something that is royal, something that is medieval, if not ancient. But if we look at the history of England, if we look at the transport history of England, I might point out that there were hardly any chariots like they were there in our country in the ancient times. But chariots actually signifies royalty. Okay, and they pause at her low gate. So her gate is low. The gate to her house is low lying, and it could mean that she does not have very high expectations, or she is humble. And if you need to be her friend, you need to be humble too. I remember this scene from a Bengali movie that I watched like some 10, I don't know how many years ago. And there was this rich guy who had come to this poor person's house, and his head banged on the uh, door panel. And there was this lady who was like very sharp, and this lady was like very um, um, righteously proud about her poverty. And she said that গরিবের বাড়িতে ঢুকতে গেলে মাথা নিচু করেই ঢুকতে হয়. And I was like, wow, what a dialogue. So um, her soul, her gate, the gate to her soul is also low. You need to be humble. You need to be um, you can't be like proud that you are, this and that, and then you want to be friends with the soul. The soul knows what your actual worth is, and you need to be humble about it. You need to show your humiliation, and then you can enter her gate, which is low gate. Unmoved, she is still unmoved. An emperor be kneeling upon her mat. Even if an emperor comes and kneels in front of her upon her mat, not her carpet but her mat. Look at the choice of the words. This is lang and parole in motion. Why do you think she did not choose carpet and chose mat? What does this word mat actually signify? Could somebody tell me? Shagota, do you want to speak to me and say why do you think she chose this word mat instead of carpet? Because mat is something more homely, more familiar than a carpet is. Shagota does not want to speak to me. It's okay, no problem. Anyone else wants to like jump in and say something about this mat and carpet thing? Okay. Are you guys okay, all of you? Like, is everything all right, or it's no, you guys are less interactive than you were in the last class? I just hope everything is okay. And do let me know when you can't take me anymore, and I'll like do something else which is more maybe interesting. So what I want to point out is that she is a humble person, and her abode, her home, is also humble. The soul's home is always humble, and even the emperor who comes into her house kneels, but on her mat, not on her carpet. She does not have a carpet. She has a mat. And even if you're an emperor, and even if you want to kneel, You kneel on the mat, not on the carpet. Now, what does this kneeling actually signify? Urunavo, do you want to say what this kneeling might mean? Urunavo? No? Or are you thinking? Like you can
Yes, sir.
even, yeah.
Repeat the question, please.
Could you see uh, the poem, and could you see um, the fact that the emperor has come and he or she whatever is kneeling on the mat.
I have seen it,
Hmm.
but what is the logic of it? Uh, it don't. It is not clear to me. What is the logic behind it?
What do you think is happening? Like she is unmoved, the soul is unmoved, even when an emperor is kneeling and kneeling on her mat. What does this kneeling actually signify? And when does an emperor kneel? I mean, we all kneel to emperors. Emperors don't kneel, but when do even emperors kneel? Or when do they have to kneel, say? Or in general, when do we kneel?
When we submission.
When we submit, or when we show our submission. And anything else? Like, do you guys have like girlfriends? Orunabo, Onkon, Onirban, or whoever other guys are here? No? Or is it too personal for me to be asking you guys? Well, it's like this is a kind of a chivalric thing. Like you kneel and you ask for the hand of the lady, which is a very medieval thing, which is a very chariot-ish thing. We already have the image of the chariot. Now we have the image of the emperor and chariot, emperor, and it is all about the chivalric past that maybe uh, um, Emily Dickinson is talking about. And this emperor has come and is kneeling on her mat, not on her carpet, and he wants the hand of the soul or of Emily Dickinson. Because I think whatever pictures of Dickinson I have seen, I think Dickinson was really very beautiful. And I also have read a little about her, and there were people who were interested in marrying her, but she was not, and she wanted to stay alone. And once in a while, which became less and less frequent as time went on, once in a while somebody would come up and would ask for her hand from her father or from her mother, and they would kneel and they would like request for Emily to give in and marry that person. And emperor, because they might be rich, they might be powerful, but this is just a metaphor, this is just a symbol. So um, so she is unmoved even when an emperor is kneeling in front of her. She doesn't even care about an emperor. It's not that she is snobbish. It's not that she has stopped talking only to common people. But even if an emperor comes, she is unmoved. She does not care whether the emperor be kneeling in front of her or not. I have known her, next stanza, I have known her from an ample nation. Choose one, then choose the valves of her attention like stone. I have known her, her here means the soul, from an ample nation. Now, nation we know means a country, a group of people living together under one political banner. Um, but nation also means what we can call in Bangla as jati. a community. So from an ample nation, choose one. So ample means sufficient. And in when the word nation is incorporated here, when the nation is mentioned here, then I think Dickinson is trying to say that choose one from a sufficient number of people. The soul has chosen one person from a community of people, from a group of people, from a huge number of people. The soul has chosen only one person. That might be herself, or maybe someone else other than her soul. Then, after you have chosen, then close the valves of her attention. What a beautiful metaphor here. She compares her attention, or she compares her consciousness with, say, a machine which has valves, like a kind of a pressure cooker, maybe. And after you put something inside the pressure cooker, I know a pressure cooker is a metonymy for food, and you might be getting hungry, so you can like eat, like you can have your lunch and do not unmute, and you can like eat and be satisfied. Poetry is not pleasurable in an empty uh, stomach. So eat, drink, and be merry, and try to listen to me. So she compares her she compares her consciousness, she compares her heart, maybe. And heart, why? Because heart also have these valves, these arteries can be compared with valves. And we often think that the heart is the center of our mind, or the heart is the heart the heart is actually our mental mm, mental central point, where we have memories and all that. So once she has chosen one, and then she closes the valves of her attention like stone, as if they are shut with a stone which is immovable. So she has chosen her own society, the soul has selected her own society, and then it has shut the door to whoever wants to come, whether it be the divine majority, whether it be the emperor, whoever comes, she doesn't care. The soul, after selecting the society, has closed the valves of her attention. She is not going to give attention to anyone, and it has been shut like stone. পাথরের মতো শক্ত হয়ে গেছে, আর চেঞ্জ হবে না, আর অন্য কোনো মানুষকে ওটার মধ্যে ঢুকতে দেবে না, ওটার মধ্যে আর আসতে দেবে না। This is the more or less the literal, or even a kind of symbolical meaning of whatever she is trying to say. But tell me this: do you think this is practical, whatever she is saying? What do you think? Yes, no, you can chat in the chat box also.
স্যার এটা এখানে এমিলি ডিকিনসন যেটা বলেছেন,
Hmm.
দ্য ভিক্টোরিয়ান কনসেপ্ট অফ চ্যাস্টিটি অ্যান্ড পিউরিটি এই অ্যাসপেক্ট থেকে বলা হয়েছে। তো সেই সময়কার
Mhm.
ভিত্তিতে প্র্যাকটিস,
Mhm.
এখনকার দিকে
Hmm. Yeah, so Onkon is very much correct. Yes. yeah, there were like breakages in your voice, Ankon. So Ankon is very correct when he says that this is practical from the perspective of the Victorian hypocritical standards of chastity and purity, that if you have like connection with one soul, or if you have like selected one person as your loved one, then you should shut the door, and you should not talk to anyone, or you should not uh, give attention to anyone. But in the modern perspective, it is not uh, practical. Um, and so it would be like something, I mean, I'm like making a lighter comment on this. It would be like something like, once you have you have your Facebook account, and you make friends with someone, and then you lock your account, and you change the setting to saying I will accept nobody's request anymore. So there will, in my Facebook account, there will be just me and the other person, which is like kind of funny. And this situation in which um, Dickinson is saying that the soul selects her own society, it is also ironical, because a society be made by only two people, or does a society need it, I mean, more than two people? I think if you're talking about society, there should be more than two people in a society. Or I don't know if Dickinson wanted to say that there could be like a two people society. But in this poem, she is the major theme, the most perceptible theme in this poem is that of solitude, is that of staying away from multiple influences. It talks about singularity. It talks about uh, the idea that you should not divide, or the soul does not divide its attention into a number of parts. And the stone, as Onkon pointed out, is could be the reflection of the Victorian norm, that even the soul has its own chastity, and if too many people are let into your soul, then you are not uh, chaste enough anymore. Okay, so with that, let us move into the next poem, that is 340, and it is a little lengthier than the last one, and I hope less cryptic this time. And it's named I Felt a Funeral in My Brain. Okay, a funeral in your brain is a burning sensation, maybe. A funeral is an elaborate exercise, social exercise again. Um, a funeral is again something where your loved ones come together. And given the overarching theme of Dickinson's solitude and her desire to stay away from as many people as possible, is also antithetical to this particular word, funeral. And the funeral is in her brain. Okay, Shagota says, explain once again, what does the word mat signify? Okay, Shagota, do you have a mat at your home? In your home? Like any mat? মানে ম্যাট বলতে আমরা কি বুঝি? মাদুর, তাই তো? Shagota, can you like unmute and speak to me so that I can understand that you're like listening or can understand, or you can say yes in the chat box, and that will be all. So mat might signify a number of things. Number one, it signifies humbleness. Rich people might have carpet and galicha and like so many things of luxury, but a mat is something that signifies poverty, or signifies not if not poverty, but simplicity. And emperor kneeling on the mat is an act of bringing down the royalty onto very humble, on a humble plane, and it is in consonance with the image of low gate, and it is the if we can use this word binary, it is the binary opposite of the chariot and the emperor. So this paradox of images, while they are at play with each other, creates a sense of contrast. This is creating a sense of contrast. Okay. So did you get the significance of the word mat in that poem, Shagota, or do you want me to explain it? Okay, great. So now let's go into the next poem. I felt a funeral in my brain. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading till it seemed that sense was breaking through. So there was something in her brain, there was something going on in her mind, and just give me a minute. I think my wife is home, but Tumo, Anuradha. Okay. Okay, so there was some sounds in the background, and I thought it was a thief or someone, but it was my wife. Okay, sorry. I felt a funeral in my brain. So she was feeling something like a funeral, but in her brain. And look at the paradoxical images of the brain and the funeral. Funeral is something that is very social. Funeral is something that is very out there. Funeral is something where people come and mix with each other. শ্রাদ্ধ যে ব্যাপারটা আর কি আমাদের কালচারেও আছে, ব্রেনের মধ্যে ফিউনারাল এটা কিভাবে হচ্ছে বা এটার মানেটা কি, বাট হোয়াট ইজ গোয়িং অন? Funeral is a sad thing. Funeral is something that makes us pine for the one who has lost. Funeral is done in respect of the person who has departed. Funeral is done to ask for the peace of the soul of the person who has departed. Right? These are all the associations of funeral. And all of these things are happening inside her brain. So is she reminiscing about somebody she lost? Is she paying respect to the person that she lost? Is her brain invaded by the loss or lack of a person that is there no more? Maybe. And mourners. Who do you think these mourners are inside her brain? This funeral is happening inside her brain, and there are like mourners who are doing what? They are to and fro, kept trading. They are moving to and fro from one place to another. Pritha, do you want to speak and tell what you think these mourners could be? Oh, Pritha left the meeting. Okay.
Sir, is it her emotions?
So mourners can be associated with emotions. What kind of emotions? How do you pronounce your name? Pratasha or Pratusha?
Yes, sir, it is fine. Protasha.
Pratasha. Okay. So what emotions, Pratasha, are you talking about?
Sir, I think the emotions she's feeling, like you have told, funeral, which means uh, she is, what's say?
If you want to speak in Bangla, that's absolutely okay. You can Bangla bolte paro. তুমি যেটা বলতে চাইছো, because we are here to understand. I mean, the language hardly matters.
No, sir, it is not the language problem actually.
Okay. Does someone else want to say what these mourners? Mourner means what? Those people who have come to mourn the death of someone. So
স্যার
what?
আমি
Yes.
সাউন্ডের থেকে বলতে পারি
হুম,
রুদালিরা যখন একসাথে কাঁদে আর কি,
হুম,
তো ক্যাওটিক লাগে খুব। আর আমার মনে
হুম।
হচ্ছে ওর কিছু ক্যাওটিক চিন্তা ভাবনা হচ্ছে, কে সিগনিফাই করছে।
Chaos কে signify করছে. Okay, that's a good way of. I will not pick up this phone. So they were like, they were thinking. She was thinking about. I mean, there was some chaos going on in her mind. Okay, that's something. What else? What other emotions? Somebody pointed out that there will be some. These mourners are actually emotions. What other emotions? Chaos, though it's not really an emotion, but the emotion of chaos, like bewilderment.
মানে ল্যামেন্টেশন ফর সামথিং লস্ট।
Pain, sorrow. Okay, yes, lamentation, pain, sorrow. So these emotions as if are মুভিং টু অ্যান্ড ফ্রো, বারবার আসছে যাচ্ছে। যেমন আমাদের হয়, আমরা যখন ভাবতে বসি, আমরা যখন ভাবতে বসি না অ্যাকচুয়ালি, আমরা যখন ফেসবুক স্ক্রল করি, অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমাদের আঙুলটা নড়ে, বাট ইন আওয়ার ওন মাইন্ড উই আর থিঙ্কিং অফ সামথিং ভেরি ডিফারেন্ট। ক্লাসের ক্ষেত্রেও এরকম হয়, যেমন ধরো এখন তোমরা বাধ্য আমার 2 ঘন্টা ধরে বকবক শুনতে, বকবক শুনছো, কিন্তু মাথার মধ্যে চলছে যে মানে যে কোনো জিনিস চলতে পারে, তোমাদের হয়তো কোনো কষ্ট হয়েছে কোনো জিনিসে, সেটা তোমরা ভেবে আরো কষ্ট পেতে পারো, বা তোমাদের কোনো জিনিসে আনন্দ হয়েছে সেটাকে ভেবে তোমরা আনন্দ পেতে পারো। But when we are talking about mourners, we usually associate mourners with sadness, pain, loss, and compassion also. মানে সবসময় যে মোর্নাররা মানে শুধু যে খারাপ কিছু মানে ইঙ্গিত করছে তাই নয়, অনেক সময় যারা আমাদের সাথে মানে সহানুভূতি দেখাতে আসে, আমাদের জন্য সিম্পথি দেখাতে আসে, রুদন করতে আসে আমাদের সাথে, তারা অনেক সময় আমাদেরকে কম্প্যাশন ও দেখায় যে না ঠিক আছে, যা হওয়ার হয়ে গেছে, ইত্যাদি ইত্যাদি এরকম বলে। So there could be compassion as well, and this is a huge range of emotions that this simple word mourners signify. আবার অনেকে আসে মজা দেখতে, যে ধরো মানে কেউ মারা গেছে, স্পেশালি যদি সে খুব বিলাভেড হয়, অনেকে যারা তাকে পছন্দ করে না তারা এসে মজা দেখতে, যে ভালো হয়েছে মরে গেছে ইত্যাদি। অ্যান্ড সাম পিপল আর লাইক who are the self-appointed masters of morality, have come to see whether the wife who has lost her husband is crying enough or not, whether a son who has lost his father is crying or lamenting enough or not, whether a mother who has lost her son or a son who has lost his mother are crying enough or not. These people are also there in the list of mourners. Mourners বলতে অনেক রকমের লোক হতে পারে, যারা কেউ সহানুভূতি দেখাতে আসে, কেউ মজা দেখতে আসে, কেউ সেলফিও তুলে নেয় অনেক সময় আমি দেখেছি, অ্যান্ড So the mourners are coming to and fro, but these mourners are not real mourners, not real people, and the funeral is not real, and but the associated image of funeral is there in the form of the mourners. In a funeral there will be mourners. So mourners are coming to and fro, একবার আসছে একবার যাচ্ছে, and they are treading, walking heavily. ট্রেড করা মানে হেভিলি ওয়াক করা, কষ্ট করে ওয়াক করা, বা মানে ওয়াক করতে করতে একটা দাগ যখন পড়ে যাচ্ছে, মানে অনেকবার যাতায়াত করা একটা পথ দিয়ে, till it seemed that sense was breaking through. They were treading, mourners were making these to and fro motion, until it seemed that sense was breaking through. When we lose someone whom we love dearly, when we lose something that we hold very dear to our heart, for some time, what Onkon pointed out, we are lost. We can't even think what is going on. All our senses are numb. So much pain, we sometimes undergo so much pain that all our senses go numb and we can't even think. We can't make sense of anything. But once the mourning is habituated, once we are habituated with the lack, loss, absence of a person whom we love or a thing we love, gradually sense comes back to us. No, we have to eat. No, we have to drink. No, we have to submit that assignment. No, we have to um, watch a movie. These are the senses that are breaking through when the mourners were moving to and fro in her brain, when the emotions were making a mess in her brain, when the emotions were tumbling like sea in storm inside her brain. But gradually sense broke through. Gradually she regained her senses. Gradually the numbness that was left after a long period of pain was gone. And when they all were seated, a service, like a drum, kept beating till I thought my mind was going numb. And when they were all seated, so initially there was chaos, like which emotion will go where, and then they settled down. One emotion was associated with one image, or one image was associated with one memory, and they all were settled. They had their appointed places. Then what happened? A service, like when somebody dies in the Christian fraternity, a service is a program, a set of actions are taken which are called a service. And in that service, sometimes if the service is for a veteran, like a military person or a police person, a person who had a martial history, drums are played. আমাদের মর্নিংয়ে, আমাদের ফিউনারালে ড্রাম বা কোনো যন্ত্র বাজানো হয় না সাধারণত। বাট যখন অনেক বুড়ো কেউ হয়তো মারা যায়, তখন হয়তো তার নাতিপুতিরা খুব আনন্দ পায় যে তার প্রপার্টি সে পেয়ে যাবে, তখন অনেক ক্ষেত্রে আমি শুনেছি, এটা কোনোদিন এক্সপিরিয়েন্স করিনি, যে অনেকে পটকা ফাটায়, ড্রাম বাজায়। বাট ড্রাম ইজ নট সামথিং দ্যাট ইজ ইউজুয়ালি অ্যাসোসিয়েটেড উইথ joy in a funeral, let alone in a ইন জেনারেল, মানে আমার ধারণা ওদের বিয়েতেও বোধহয় ড্রাম বাজে না, ওদের ড্রামটা হয়তো স্পেশাল অকেশনস যেগুলো হচ্ছে, যেমন ধরো লড়াই করতে যাচ্ছে বা লড়াইতে জিতে এসছে, সেক্ষেত্রে ড্রামটা ইউজুয়ালি ব্যবহার করা হয়। And drum is just a musical instrument. And a service, a song is sung in the memory of the person who has departed, and an accompaniment is the drum. Kept beating, আর ড্রামটা বাজছে অনেকক্ষণ ধরে, দমদম করে বেজেই চলেছে, till I thought my mind was going numb, and she thought that she couldn't think anymore, because a continuous beating of the drum, like the continuous speech that I am making, might have had made you numb, and maybe you are having a headache. Sorry for that. But the continuous beating of the drum has made her mind go numb. She cannot think anymore, even if in the last paragraph she was talking about the sense that was breaking through. And the image of the drum sometimes is very incongruous with the funeral. If the death is not that of, if the funeral is not that of a military person, if you beat a drum in a service or in a funeral, it looks very out of place. Now these two paragraphs, these two stanzas, and this image of funeral and service is obviously associated with death, because the death, I mean, the funeral is the cause, is the effect of death. And we know that Dickinson's favorite themes included death also. So these images also point towards death, the theme of death. And I just imagined something very strange here. Is Dickinson, whose funeral is this? Whose funeral do you think is going on? Any wild guesses? Yes, Ankon? Your microphone is unmuted, but I can't hear you. Or someone else wants to take a wild guess. Whose funeral is it? Well, I think it's Dickinson's own funeral. She is laid inside her tomb. She is laid inside her coffin. She is laid inside her tomb. And she could understand whatever is happening on the surface. Imagine that we are dead, but we still have consciousness, and we can hear, or we can experience whatever is happening outside. Now, this is not a Gothic poem, or Dickinson, at least I think Dickinson never wanted to be read this poem as a Gothic poem, where she is like living and she has been buried alive, and or she is alive inside her coffin, and she could hear people in her funeral. But also, as Ankon pointed out, this is the Victorian period, right? And Gothic images, Gothic influences from the Romantic age was still reverberating in literature, especially in America. I think a few years later, one of the greatest writers of Gothic stories, Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, who is also an American, or I think Poe was a contemporary of Dickinson, but I'm not sure. We can like Google it and find out. But there is a Gothic element as well. And my wife pointed out from the background that it could be a metaphorical death as well. I mean, she's not really dead, of course. I mean, if she's dead, how can she write the poem? But it could be the metaphorical death. And what is the metaphorical death? Since she has chosen the society of her own, since she has chosen to be alone all the while, some people are making this comment that she's dead to the society, she's dead to the community, she's dead to her friends. And what else is death but an isolation from the world? So, in that sense, yes, this could be a metaphorical death, and metaphorical funeral is going on. People are already saying that Dickinson is such a Emily is such a beautiful girl. Why has she chosen to stay lonely, and why doesn't she mix with us? People will forget her, and so on and so forth. There is also another point here that some people were saying that some researchers pointed out that Dickinson suffered from some form of an epilepsy, and many researchers have pointed out, like medical ones, and I did not read all of them, but some of them have pointed out that when you have an epileptic fit, your body undergoes convulsions. You almost feel as if you are dead because you become unconscious. One of the forms of epilepsy will knock you unconscious, and unconscious is a form of death. Seen from another perspective, seen from the perspective of psychoanalysis, is this funeral a dream that Dickinson is experiencing? We often dream like this, like we are dead, and people, I don't know, I mean, I'm saying we dream of our death. Sometimes we do, like we are falling and we are like buried and we are like burnt and things like that. She might be dreaming of all of these things. Also, Dickinson, as I pointed out in our previous class, suffered from a rare condition called agoraphobia, which means fear of open places, like, and the opposite of it is claustrophobia. And the smallest space, the smallest personal space that you can find in the Christian paradigm is the coffin, where you can stay very personal, where you can stay very quiet, where you can stay very to yourself. So if it is a dream, it's a wish fulfillment for Dickinson, that she's already dead, and people are coming to her funeral, and mourners are there, and then a service is going on, people are singing songs for her, or they are like making speeches, and so on and so forth. So just these two paragraphs, these two stanzas emanate so much meaning. And if you look at the structure of this poem, the dashes are not there, not too many dashes, though there are between treading and till, and like beating and till, which look more like hyphens than dashes. She is more wordy here. She is more, no, word is the wrong word. She is more, she is expressing more through words. Earlier, she was expressing only through the gaps between the words. But now, here she is expressing through words themselves and not dashes. Because maybe this numbness and this funeral that is going on in her mind is giving her the pleasure of loneliness, is giving her the pleasure of death, because death is a kind of loneliness, death is a kind of solitude. So many things could be understood right from these two stanzas. Then I heard them lift a box and creak across my soul with those same boots of lead again. Then space began to toll. And then I heard them lift a box. So my conjecture, what I was thinking, might be correct. Which box is being lifted? Which box is she hearing being lifted? It's her coffin. It could be her coffin. And so she's hearing, she's listening to her own box, that is own coffin being lifted, and creak across my soul with those same boots of lead again. Then space began to toll. So there is a creak across her soul. Creak is a sound, like creaking sound, like opening of boxes and closing of boxes. And this creak sound is usually to be found in wood, like wood creak when you walk across it. So her soul and the wooden box that she is enclosed in has become one, and when somebody has put their feet on the box, her soul also creaked. Imagine the depth of her thinking, her feeling, that she has become the box and the box has become her. Her coffin has become her soul. And why do you think somebody puts a boot on the box? Because somebody needs to go down there and put soil on the box. I mean, though it is done often by ropes, but somebody can also go down and put the box in the right place. And this person has boots of lead, but the same boots of lead. So that means this boot has been somebody used the same boots to step on her again. Then space, and then there is space, like there is nothing, began to toll. So it is not the space that has begun to toll, but it's the bell of the church in the graveyard of which Dickinson's body is being laid to rest. That is tolling. And though she is, then this is a very important image, this is a very important juncture of the poem, and though she is lying within a coffin, she has space enough. She could be understood to be the poet of implosion, rather than exfoliating, rather than going outside. She is turning into herself. She is converting, she is making the space that is there inside the coffin enough space. And she says that there is space here, but outside the bell tolls. It starts to ring. But let us spend a little more time on the boots of lead. What are these leaden boots? Um, Lead is a heavy object. Lead, in fact, is the heaviest of all objects. But boots uh, do not really have lead. I don't know if like people in those times used to like use lead on their boots, but I thought it was iron. But anyway, lead is heavier than iron, and boots of lead. Boots were usually worn by men, and perhaps she is pointing out to the Victorian oppression on the consciousnesses of women, where they were forced into narrow spaces and had to live there and have to make do wherever they were forced into. And I think I don't know what else can I make out of these boots of lead or leaden boots. I cannot find a religious association here. Could you, if you can find a religious association of lead, why is lead used? Like, is lead used for some religious purposes, for some religious ceremonies, or lead was used for some other purposes? I can't imagine what else could these boots refer to. Boots could refer to male oppression, like, which was very common in the Victorian era. And I think she is talking about that boot because this kind of oppression that every woman almost faces in their lives was upon her again. But this was perhaps the last time a boot could harm her, because she is now in her own space, now in her own coffin, where she is safe from boots and from everything else. But she can hear the tolling of the church bells. Okay, I wish to stop here today because it is already 3 o'clock, and I know that you are either hungry or you are sleepy, or you are you have had enough of me already. But just as a parting shot, do you have any questions from these three stanzas that we did today? Okay, I think even if you start asking questions, somebody would like message you to stop, because we are at the end of the day, literally. And okay, so I just wanted to inform you that I won't be taking the class on 27th, but I will talk to Shukla ma'am to make sure that we do not lose the class altogether. And this, I mean, after having a discussion with you guys as well, she might give me another slot where I can take the class. But 27th we are not meeting, so we are meeting next to next week, or maybe sometimes which is not Monday, next week. Okay, so with that, all of you may leave the meeting, and Merry Christmas. Have a great New Year as well, though your exams are approaching. Okay.